there, and that's what we talk about line watching. When I talk about line watching, that's what I'm talking about. I'm going to do a big segment on that one of these days, because that and your line size and feeling your lure is so important in all types of fishing. We enjoyed taking you to Yellowstone this week. Hope you bass fishing.
Take 'em.
German brown. Yeah, you got it. Just feel him drift back to me.
He got what?
He wrapped in that net.
All right. What the heck? Was he wrapped up in my line or what?
Yeah, he just turned over on it.
That son of a gun was going downstream, so
What do you know?
Oh, wait a minute.
Lost my glasses and everything. He may not even be hooked now.
I don't think he is. Oh, yes.
Right there. Yeah, there you go.
Skinny little guy.
He was. Boy, you wanted to wait.
On Speedweek, Bill nibbles away at Darrell's lead.
Ayrton curbs his Australian appetite.
And Atlanta simply devours cars.
This and more coming up on Speedweek.
BF Goodrich, makers of high-performance TA radials. We make cars perform.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Speedweek. I'm Larry Newber.
And I'm Bob Jenkins. Atlanta International Raceway hosted two exciting stock car races last weekend. The Grand National half resulted in a tightening of the points race.
Criticized by some, but the NASCAR point system has a habit of not declaring a champ until the final turn of the season. This year's Scourge, Moody Bill Elliott put one on recent history Scourge, defiant Darrell Waltrip last week. Mark Allen reports.
Harry Gant led the first 6 laps under caution because of a wet track. But once at race speed, Bill Elliott was his old self again, blasting off to a sizable lead in quest of the record for the most superspeedway wins in a season. 28 K.O. Yarborough and Gant were but a few who needed cautions to stay close. They got one 96 laps in for a 3-car mishap involving 64 Clark Dwyer, 14 A.J. Foyt, and 23 Mike Waltrip. On the restart, Gant had a tire go down and never recovered the lap he lost while changing it. During another caution a few laps later, everyone pitted, with Elliott stopping a second time to tighten a loose lug nut. That put him down to 10th. Yarborough tried to run away for the next 120 laps. Meanwhile, Dave Marcus ran into the turn 4 wall, but was able to continue. Some of the sport's biggest names took aim at the leader. 11 Darrell Waltrip and Dale Earnhardt were good, but never quite strong enough. After rallying, Elliott wasn't timid about nipping at Yarborough's heels, nor were Richard Petty and son Kyle, who stayed in the top 5 until misfortune struck. Richard lost a lap, changing a leaking tire. 58 laps from the finish, Kyle tangled with Sammy Swindell and earned a short visit to a hospital for an injured leg. His smile says it wasn't too serious. 3 laps after the restart, Elliott took control and roared into the record books by winning his 11th superspeedway event this year, breaking David Pearson's 9-year-old record. Yarborough could do nothing but hang on to second over a closing Waltrip. Earnhardt was 4th. Elliott closed to within 20 points of Waltrip in the Winston Cup title chase, and the possibility exists for them to tie for the championship when the last race is run in California. This is Mark Allen reporting.
4th up for grabs between Bodine and Bonnet. Gant will finish 3rd. Those 20 separating Waltrip and Elliott equate to about 4 positions if they both. Bill Elliott's car owner, Harry Melling, says that NASCAR has made a scoring error and given Waltrip 10 more points that he doesn't deserve. Melling says NASCAR admits the error, but he won't take any action unless Elliott loses the championship by 10 points or less.
While most other sanctioning organizations are winding up their seasons, ARCA began its 1986 campaign with an action-packed 200-lapper at Atlanta Saturday. 9 caution flags will wave before this one is over. Brett Bodine from the pole beats Connie Saylor into turn 1, but when the field reaches turn 3, the first yellow waves. Joey Sontag is hit by John McFadden. His car continues out of control toward the inside of the racetrack. Hits an earthen embankment, scattering a photographer. After a brief green, 3 cars are into the outside wall in turn 4. Roger Blackstock does a complete rollover after hitting the tire protecting the pit wall. All drivers are okay. Bodine continues to lead the race, but it's a close battle with contact with Bob Dotter in turn 2, sending Dotter to the infield in a cloud of tire smoke. Bodine makes a late pit stop under green, giving the lead to Raymond. Then this crash that begins when Ken Reagan slides down the front stretch. He's hit by Bob Penrod, who's clobbered by Bill Venturini. Raymond narrowly gets by on the inside. There are only 5 laps to go, so the race ends under yellow. Raymond, with a flat tire, wins it. Bodine is second. Penrod is trapped in the car for several minutes, but after observation at a local hospital, he's released with no serious injuries.
Darrell Waltrip has expressed an interest in being a track owner. He's said to be interested in buying the Nashville Fairground Speedway, Salem Speedway in Indiana, and a track in South Carolina. Winchester Speedway in Indiana may be lighted and stage weekly 4-cylinder open-wheel mini-modified racing next season. And a road course called the Talladega Grand Prix Raceway is under construction about 5 miles southeast of Alabama International Motor Speedway. It's 1.5 miles in length with 11 turns.
Rick Wilson has signed to drive Haas Ellington's car next year. The sponsor will be Circus World. Bobby Allison and Bobby Hillen will both drive Stavola-owned cars next year, sponsored by Miller, but the 2 teams will operate independently. Brett Hearn won the modified closer at Flemington, New Jersey last Sunday. The 3rd year in a row, the Syracuse winner has also scored at Flemington.
Coming up, the Gem is on under the yellow in Trans Am.
And Can-Am goes under the spell of under 2-liter.
BF Goodrich TA Radials update for enthusiasts. Subject off-road traction. More professional off-road races and more pro rallies were won last year on the same BF Goodrich TA Radials you can buy than on any. And that same race-proven technology goes into a complete line of TA Radials for many driving styles, including yours. BF Goodrich TA Radials. We make cars and trucks perform.
This Bud's for all that you do. They said this city was through. You said, no way. Each day the spirit's growing. Your pride is really showing. You make America work, and this Bud's for you. Here's to you. This Bud's for you.
Spinning out at Indy at 200 miles an hour just isn't a whole lot of fun. Believe me, I wore a seatbelt that day. And I wore a seatbelt when I had a really dangerous job, driving a New York City cab. And I wear a seatbelt even when I'm just cruising around town. It doesn't take a... Where you belong, in the car. It's your life, so smarten up, buckle up.
Smart advice from the United States Department of Transportation.
Saturday, television's biggest live sports lineups on ESPN. MISL Soccer puts goalies on the endangered species list. The St. Louis Steamers and Pittsburgh Spirit collide with explosive goal-blasting power. And there's live PGA action from Hawaii with Nissan Cup World Championship final round coverage on golf's #1 network. Later, the day's best college gridiron matchup. South Carolina plans to knock Florida State off a top 10 perch in our live CFA exclusive all Saturday.
The largest crowd ever to watch a sporting event in Australia gathered Sunday, late Saturday night U.S. time, and thousands watched on ESPN Sunday morning the 16th and final Formula One race of 1985. Ayrton Senna, pole sitter for the 7th time this year, didn't win, but sure was entertaining. He was slow getting away from the line, and outside row 1 starter Nigel Mansell grabbed the lead, but it didn't last long. Senna forces Mansell off the track at the first corner, and Nigel's bid for 3 wins in a row are gone. K.K. Rosberg comes out of the shunt in the lead and builds a 10-second advantage at 1 point. But Senna is charging. A little too hard, though. He's up and over the curbing, but loses only a few seconds. Thierry Boutsen's season ended in this fire chemical cloud, but 4 points-paying finishes this year will return him to the Arrows team next year. Meanwhile, Ayrton's still trying to pass KK. Rosberg is off the throttle to pit. Senna hits him. The Lotus loses its right front wing, and Ayrton wrestles with the car for nearly 2 laps, but finally makes it to the pits where repairs are made. Mark Suhr had a good early run in the Brabham, but may have run into Senna's debris, causing a flat left front tire. KK's back in the lead now, but Niki Lauda, in maybe his last race, is second. But look who's on the move again. Senna with a new wing and fresh rubber. Rosberg has to pit again for tires. It's an unusually long stop. When he returns to the track, he's second behind both Lauda and Senna. Niki, who says he'll turn down $7 million to sign with Brabham, takes the lead from Senna. But then the McLaren, with possibly a cracked brake rotor, makes a left going into a right-hand corner. The suspension is broke and Lauda is out. That puts Ayrton back in the lead, but the Lotus coughs. Rosberg passes and leads the rest of the way. Ligier drivers Jacques Lafitte and Philippe Streff fought for second until this incident, which gave Jacques his best finish of the year and young Streff a third. Others who received points, Ivan Capelli in the Tyrrell in only his second race, Stefan Johansson and Gerhard Berger.
St. Petersburg, Florida spent the weekend dodging Hurricane Juan and hosting one of the biggest SCCA weekends of the year. Certainly one of the of Mexico sites. Heavy tropical clouds threatened but never drenched any of the pro races. One of the headliners, Trans Am cars. Willie T. Ribbs, fastest qualifier, and soon after green, they rounded an almost perfect single-file formation. Ribbs, teammate Dallenbach, Tom Ware-Elspeth, third Gloy, EFR, Neifel, Jim Miller, former champ Epi Wheatsies. Jerry Simmons gave an unusual glimpse of Trans Am racing when he jumped out of his opening door after crashing. IMSA standout Patty Moise raced in Trans Am for the first time and gave Wally Dallenbach an unusual glimpse of what happens when somebody almost pulls out in your path. During one full course yellow, things got a little jammed up in the hairpin of this very tight course. The drivers took that free parking sign literally. You know, a good space is hard to find anymore. Ribbs will lead every lap, but champ Dallenbach actually got alongside a couple of times before dropping by the wayside. Matter of fact, just about everybody went away. 3/4 in, Les Lindley spins in front of the leaders. Ribbs and Gloy bearing down, seemingly nowhere to go. Ribbs dart slow, Gloy high. Whew, they made it. Dallenbach, Gloy, Forbes, Robinson, Neifel all dropped out, leaving second to Jim Miller, a well-deserved best finish ever.
Early in 1985, there was considerable doubt about a Can-Am series, but it began at Mossport in June and ended at St. Petersburg last weekend. Rick Muskiewicz had won the last 3 in a row, qualified for the pole position here and led early. A full course yellow was called for when Randy Zimmer hit the wall and scattered debris. Dan Marvin put fenders on his number 87 Formula Atlantic car and muscled his way into the lead for a moment, but then Rick gets him back. Horst Kroll and Peter Greenfield in the blue number 41 are in a close contest for third. Greenfield emerges with a broken wing and later encounters some serious handling problems. Bruce Langston in number 70 started 7th, moved to 3rd at one point, but when Greenfield attempted to pass him, they collided, and Langston was out. Dr. Lucelle, the Hawaiian dentist, encountered occasional engine problems during the race, but found himself in the lead when Muskiewicz pitted. Sell won his first Can-Am ever, but Muskiewicz, with his second place finish, is 1985 Can-Am champion.
And Larry, that was not only Sell's first victory of the year, but also the first for an under 2-liter car.
Giving away a lot of cubes. There could be as many as 3 Ford Probe GTP cars at Daytona for the IMSA finale in December. One will be strictly for research and development. The second car will likely be driven by Lynn St. James and possibly Wally Dallenbach. Ford products have been very successful in many types of racing this year. Jack Roush, whose Ford Capris have won 12 of 15 Trans Am races this year, and the Mustangs the IMSA GTO title, says he looks for major changes at General Motors next year to get them back on the winning track.
I think that GM is embarrassed that they haven't taken the initiative, taken advantage of the initiative that they had, and I expect there'll be a fair amount of changes made, and a lot of it will be being nervous.
Roush is expected to campaign 2 turbocharged Mercurs in the Trans Am Series next year. 7-Eleven will be involved in sponsorship of a funny car again next year. John Force has been named to fill the seat vacated by Billy Meyer.
In our next segment, Formula Atlantic is another race of attrition.
And Sports Renault is also wreck-strewn.
I'm General Chuck Yeager. The American volunteer spirit, which made this country great, is strong today. Civil Air Patrol volunteers have shown us the way for more than 40 years through search and rescue, disaster relief, and aerospace education programs, and an active cadet program for today's youth. For more information, contact your local Civil Air Patrol unit or write to National Headquarters, Civil Air Patrol, Maxwell Air Force Base, Alabama.
Boy, do I need help.
Hire a kid.
Can't afford to.
It's a new program that pays up to 50% of on-the-job training salaries and gives you tax credits.
To small operators like me?
Sure, it's run by local business for local needs.
Boy, do I have a local need.
So call it Private Industry Council.
Hey, I hear you're looking for help.
I sure am.
For information, write the National...
South Carolina in our live CFA Game of the Week. The Seminoles passing game is their ticket to victory. And if they win, they'll stay in the top 10. But they'll have to beat the Gamecocks' destructive defense. Live Saturday.
Travel arrangements made through Eastern Airlines. Whether you're traveling on business or pleasure, chances are Eastern has a convenient flight going your way. Come fly with Eastern.
SCCA's Formula Atlantic, another division that ended its season at the pier and on the streets of St. Petersburg last week. Dayton, Ohio's Chip Meade, who almost made the Indy 500 a few years ago, made the most of one of his rare appearances, sat on the pole. This race resembled a World Series of E-Car. Meade leads, and then 84 and 85 East Coast champ Chicago's Michael Angus, fresh off his Atlanta win, followed by West Coast star and two-time W-Car title holder Dan Marvin. Only a 30-lap race, but only 7 around at the end. Meade perhaps the most spectacular exit as he grazes the wall and crashes out of the lead. James King and Jimmy Santos were 2 other cement victims, and Angus, who later said it was just my fault, skated off course. Another Pacific racer, Riley Hopkins, kept his nose clean and swept to victory.
The season finale for the Volkswagen Cup Series was a part of the St. Pete Grand Prix. 26 cars started the 25-lap, 53-mile contest. Kurt Matthewson in car number 14 got off to a great start and led pole sitter Randy Pops for the first 3 laps. An early collision involving number 7 Mark Bem and number 5 Al Salerno resulted in Salerno's retirement. Number 6 Peter Schwartzad damaged the front of his car, punctured the radiator, and finished 3 laps down. Matthewson and Pops also have a collision that drops Kurt back several positions. Pops takes the checkered, but Matthewson protests his driving tactics. Randy is assessed an 11-second penalty, giving the win to Paul Hacker. Matthewson was second, and Hacker won the series championship.
The Sports Renault race proved to be the most eventful of all. San Diego's Mark Wyborny moved from 4th to the lead. That's Scott Lagasse homestader soaring along behind, then Kentucky's Scott Harrington and Willie Lewis. An interested spectator, Wally Dallenbach, here with Jack Roush. Another race of survival and the weekend's most serious incident. Just 2 laps from the end, 29-year-old Sandra Aspey of Fort Lauderdale out of control. A head-on with the wall, rear-ended by Darcy Schroeder of St. Louis. Emergency personnel first had to revive her breathing. Then she was admitted in guarded condition with a broken pelvis. Wyborny had followed Lagasse for a while, but once into the lead, victory was his.
USAC has announced its IndyCar rules for 1986. They call for the footbox area to be lengthened by 4 inches. The cockpit area will be increased to allow more room for the extrication of an injured driver. The car must be a minimum of 50 inches wide and a maximum of 63 inches. Side pods must be at least 12 inches wide. The weight will remain about the same, but will include lubricants and coolants with a maximum of 25 pounds of ballast. Tunnel exits have been narrowed to decrease ground effects. Pop-off valves must be used anytime a car is on the track. And front wings will be limited in length and width, and both front and rear wings must be single element. Of course, those USAC IndyCar rules apply only to the Indy 500.
Well, Bob, I think the obvious is important here. We have 2 different groups. They should strive to be compatible. And when we return, sprint cars from the Gulf to the Pacific.
And we predict that an Unser will be champion in Indy cars next on Speedweek.
This liquid can help keep your engine running cool, prevent corrosion, keep it from boiling over or freezing up. What's in it? AluGuard, a premium quality antifreeze formula approved by all 4 major U.S. car makers. AluGuard, a formula you find in more than 70 brands of antifreeze, but not in Prestone. The label tells you it's car maker approved antifreeze. Antifreeze with AluGuard. Available now. BF Goodrich TA radials. Update. For enthusiasts. Subject, TA technology. 1 brand of high-performance tires. 1 was rated first overall by Car and Driver magazine. The V speed-rated BF Goodrich Comp TA. First 2 in wet maneuverability and wet braking. And the same race-proven technology that went into the Comp TA also went into the entire family of BF Goodrich TA radials. Sports coupes handle and corner precisely on TA radials. Trucks get outstanding off-road traction and quiet, comfortable highway performance. The fact is, the same winning technology that brings you the Comp TA also brings you a complete line of high-performance TA radials in many sizes for many different driving styles and performance needs, including your own. BF Goodrich TA radials. We make cars and trucks perform.
This bud's for all that you do. You keep America going. You keep the juices flowing. You are the muscle, the hope and the hustle. You keep the country growing, and you make America work, and this bud's for you.
Here's to you, Beechwood Age, for that clean, crisp taste that says Budweiser.
This bud's for you.
Last week's CRA sprint car feature went to one of those hard-charging, diligent regulars. Mr. Supremacy of CRA Racing, the intense one, Dean Thompson, but he says he might retire. If so, who will be his heir apparent? 9 regulars in addition to Dean have won features this year. They back into 1, 2x2, Eddie Worth Low, Denny Lewis High, followed by Jeff Haywood, Rip Williams. Williams begins to assert. Although caught in the middle, discretion becomes the better part of valor. Hey, where's Thompson? Oh, there he is, but he just doesn't have it this night. Can't win them all. Williams, who was injured in the Midwest in May, goes on to win for the 2nd time in 2 months.
The races in the streets of St. Petersburg weren't the only ones last weekend in the Tampa Bay area. The sprinters and late models ran their weekly show at Tampa Fairgrounds Half-Mile Dirt. Wayne Rudiman in number 00 blasted away from the green flag to take the lead down the backstretch, and the Florida veteran led the entire distance. Remember Sport Allen, the teenager? Well, he got in trouble in the early going this night, although Sport has won a few times this season. The real battle in the sprint feature was for 2nd. Roland Johnson got by Sam Rodriguez late in the 15-lapper for runner-up spot. Rudiman completed a sweep this night, also taking the late model race.
This weekend in Miami, the IndyCar Championship comes down to what has to be the most emotional face-off in the history of IndyCar racing. Father versus son. If Al Unser Sr., written off by many experts and without a full-time ride when the season began, wins the crown, he'll be the oldest winner in history, 46. If Al Jr. wrestles away the title, he'll be the youngest ever at 23. Father drives for Roger Penske, whose machines have won the championship 7 times, including 4 of the last 6. son for upstart car owner Doug Shearson, who was close for the very first time. Last year's champ, Mario Andretti, would like to atone for a miserable second half of the season. He is IndyCar Racing's most successful road racer in history. Or can Bobby Rahal, Quicksilver, of the last 5 races end on a winning note? And you know, there are many new car and driver combinations that are expected to be announced this weekend in Miami.
TV's Knight Rider David Hasselhoff will join Ott Grun. Darren Brassfield is scheduled to make his IndyCar debut at Miami. He's been testing extensively at Laguna Seca. He'll concentrate on IndyCars next year, but will also team with go-karter Scott Pruitt in the Brooks Racing IMSA GTO T-Bird on occasion. STP has terminated its relationship with Patrick Racing. Rumor has it that STP would like to sign Mario, Michael, and Jeff Andretti to personal services contracts. Sonny Meyer, a longtime Patrick employee, is retiring after Miami. He'll be replaced by Jim Wright, who's been the engine expert for Brayton Racing. Patrick is expected to run a Buick V6 at Indianapolis next year. Scott Brayton will drive for Himmelgarn Racing next year with a V6 Buick, at least for Indy, and in kart if boost rules are changed. And Marlboro will not only sponsor the IndyCar Series, it will sponsor Emerson Fittipaldi's Patrick March.
Here's this week's trivia question. Who won the last IndyCar race in the state of Florida? A, Jim Rathman, B, Roger Ward, C, Jimmy Bryan, D, Eddie Sachs, or E, Bob Byte? Bob will have the answer in a moment.
Love one another.
As I have loved you.
Care for each other.
As I have cared for you.
Bear one another's burdens.
Share each other's joys.
Love one another. Love one another. And bring each other home.
Come together as a family. Come together to your house of worship every week.
Worship together. Grow together.
A message from Religion in American Life.
Carlos, ¿dónde vas? Carlos, ¿dónde vas?
To the movies.
Once your children walk out the door, they're on their own.
Want some wafer?
Carlos, say no.
No, 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 no.
Hey, I got some booze, man. It's good blow, man. Why don't you just try something?
Just say no.
No, man.
Talk to your kids about drugs. Help them to just say no.
Here's the answer to this week's trivia question. The last IndyCar race in the state of Florida was at Daytona, April 4th, 1959. The race was won by A, Jim Rathman. The 100-mile event was run at an average speed of 170.261 miles an hour and was the first and last race at Daytona International Speedway.
And as if there weren't enough divisions of racing, here's the next craze beginning to sweep the country.
If you're ready.
Now, don't be fooled. That's only 1/10 scale, RC, for radio-controlled racing. These little mechanical rodents run on either scaled-down ovals or off-roads, and it speeds up to 30 miles an hour. Does that equate to 300? Well, a $300 to $500 investment will get you started and behind the wheel, controls.
When I'm driving, my hand is shaking so bad. It's just so nervous because you're out in front, you don't want to make a mistake, and I still get the thrill as if I was racing in the car itself, I guess.
It takes a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of skill driving it. You put a lot of time during the week into your cars. Out here, these guys have been practicing for weeks.
We're very happy to report that all those little men inside those cars were not injured in the accidents. Well, next week on Speed Week, the end of the IndyCar season and the Baja 1000 off-road race. I'm Bob Jenkins.
And I'm Larry Newber. We leave you with more from the Formula One race in Adelaide, Australia.
Speed Week has been brought to you by BF Goodrich, makers of high-performance TA radials. We make cars perform.
This is where it all begins, a diagram in the team's playbook. And this is where it takes shape, out on the practice field. But here's where it really comes together, in the packed stadium on a Sunday afternoon, the game on the line. That, my friend, is the real thing. And when it comes to sports coverage, the real thing for me is right here, the Sporting News, America's champion sports